Welcome everybody. Here we are on session 3 of self-practice, and what we're going to look at today is starting your practice and then the different stages of it. So again, normally I do a little bit of a recap over the last couple of sessions as well. So let me just simply say, a lot of people when they start to do their self-practice or they're thinking about it, one of the things they think is, where do I start? What do I do? What postures do I do? So that's the conversation we're going to have today. And we talk about the different categories of postures and how they all fit into a sequential lesson plan. So you begin to understand to make sense of it. So you have standing postures, you have forward bends, you have twists, you have back bends, you have inversions, and then you have balancing postures. And they're the 6 categories. And they all fit in different places of the session. So we'll have that conversation today. And it's a general conversation. I'm not going to get too specific. I'll just introduce the categories, and then we look at how they fit in and where they fit in, just so you get a general mindscape of where you start, how do you get it going, yeah? Where next session is we'll start practically going into that more and more, yeah? So the recap is the first chat we had was just about a reasonable approach to your self-practice. It's setting up a lifelong practice. So you're setting up a marathon rather than a race, and you're being reasonable in your schedule and your approach to your classes. And it's a mix between sessions that might last an hour to lots of micro sessions that you do through your day. Then we also had a chat about designing your self-practice, and that's very much about each session. You start with centering, and then you limber out. You want to open up your body, you want to open up your breath, open up your mind. You want to get to a place then where you start to build strength, so concentration, physical strength. But then you want to calm down, you want to let it all go, and then you want to come to that nice place of relaxation. So ultimately, the form of your session, it shows you how to bring your energy up and bring your energy down. Is to build your strength and then to ease off. Is to increase your concentration and then to release it out. And part of those conversations we were talking about your sanctuary, setting up the space, is what way do you want it to be? Where will it be, but what way do you want it to be? What are the rules in your self-practice? And I use the measurement of the normal rules of social engagement is there's an appropriateness to things. Where in your own self-practice it's better to have a free space, where you leave all those rules outside and you can allow yourself to just be, and you can explore the range of yourself. And a simple way to describe that is the 3 basic states that we would experience is happiness, sadness, and calm. So a very easy way to describe that, our ability to cry with ease, to smile with ease, and to be calm with ease, it allows us to have free access to those tendencies, and it allows us to be emotionally intelligent and emotionally open and engaged. Even at a mental level, between negativity and positivity, it allows us to flow freely between them, because they're our natural states. But the freedom to explore that in ourselves is giving that space to ourselves to facilitate that is very important. And a simple example is, it's not always socially appropriate to cry, it's not always socially appropriate to walk around smiling, simply because smiling feels good. So there's the rules that we have in our everyday life, but then there's the rules that you would have in your own self-practice, in your own sanctuary. And we all have them. There's how you behave in work, how you behave with your family, how you behave with your friends, how you behave with a football team or any other sport or any community, whatever way. There's all these different rules and boundaries that we have. So basically what I'm saying to you is, what is the rules and boundaries within your own sanctuary, and that you consciously choose what they are, and then that allows you to create a free space for yourself. We also talked about what you bring into the room, in the sense of you can leave all your stuff at the door and you can just come in and you can just do yoga. You can focus on yoga and nothing else. as like two forms of meditation: is meditate on emptiness, so meditate on silence, or you meditate on an object. So meditate on joy or meditate on a rose, and something like that. Both bring you to that same place of oneness within. Yeah. So you can leave all your stuff outside, just come in and, you just want to do your yoga and you just want it that simple and that clear. Yeah. But then equally, this is a practice for your life. So bringing your life in is also important. So some days you want to get in the mat and you want to center yourself in a life situation. So you might be thinking about a work situation or a relationship situation or a value situation or anything that's going on in your life. You can bring it in, center yourself in it, limber and open yourself into it. You're still doing your postures, but you're opening yourself into the pattern of thought or the situation you're dealing with. You build strength as you hold the space open in your practice, and it allows you to go through the process of, how do I bring energy up and down in this situation? How do I raise my consciousness up and down in this situation? What can I see that's new in it? I'm looking for insight. And that as you experience that insight, again, while you're doing your practice, is as you experience that insight, while you're resting into your body at the end of your practice, while you're resting energetically and mentally, is that insight. You can also let go into that insight. And then you take that off the mat and you bring it into your everyday life. So you can do both. Is you can leave all your stuff at the door, or you can bring it in. It really depends on what approach is going to work best for you on a given day. Now, one of the things that I wanted to add on to that I'm going to have this conversation, and then it'll lead into is the content. What postures you put in, what sequence would you put them in? What's the general rules? Yeah. But this is the part of the conversation I want to have. Is some days you do your practice and you're full of beans, like you've loads of energy. So you want to go in and you want to tear up the mat with regards to the intensity of your practice. You go for a big, strong practice. Super. And that's what you've got on that day. Another day is you might come in and your energy is low, and you don't have that big, energetic, physical, you want to do a big, strong session. So you facilitate yourself on that day and you go through your practice, but you work at the level where you don't tire yourself, but yet you actually draw more energy in and increase your energy levels, even if it's low. So what I mean by that is you center yourself, you go into the limbering. Maybe limbering is as far as you go that day. Is maybe you do a strengthening session, but you don't go into the intensity. You just let yourself feel the resistance and just feel the enjoyment of it. And again, you do a cooling down and a calming down. So the peak of your intensity on a given day can vary. You can play with the variables. So you can go for super strong, you can lengthen it out if you want, or you can go for something much more less intense, and you can shorten it depending on what you've got to give on the day. And in that, you're allowing yourself to be very, very adaptable and flexible with how you engage with yourself and how you find your balance on a given day. And if you think about it like a marathon, is you're practicing the marathon. And marathon runners don't try to run marathons all the time. They don't do it. They very seldom run marathons. Is what they do is they have a regular pace and they have a regular length, and they're playing around with that. And coming closer to a marathon is they'll work up to a longer race, a more intense race, but yet they'll also have gaps of greater rest. Because what they're doing is they're training themselves to be on peak for that day in the marathon, not to be worn out on that day of the marathon. So they're building their tone and in the intensity, but their rest periods are longer. And then as they come down again and they practice for the next marathon, they go, okay, I'm doing a marathon in another month or another 8 weeks. Again, they reduce it down, and there's the 10Ks, and as you get closer, it's the 15Ks with bigger rests. So now why am I saying that? It's because that's exactly the same way that you would develop and practice your own self-practice. Think you're going to do this for life, and you're doing it regularly. So if you look at the routine of your day, your week, your month, your season, your year, is there can be different things coming in at different times of the year that you have to facilitate, that you have to allow for, and that you pace yourself with those. and you measure your practice with them. Equally, if you're working on something big in yourself, if you're working on a big insight, I'll give you an example. Is if you come in and you start working on, I'll use the heart. I was thinking of the heart, so I'll use the heart. Let's say you're working on coming in and just being more, holding more care for yourself in your practice. You realize that, I need to just hold my heart energy in myself and hold it open and hold it with a little bit of care. So in that, you're inclined to attack less punishment. You're being more mindful and more engaging in your body. You're holding that warmth of care for yourself. Is you work that, and at one point you're working up to being able to hold that state of care continually, so that you hold it for a little bit of your practice. You hold it for a little bit of your practice, then you hold it for more of your practice. And then you're able to hold it while you're in the strongest challenges in your practice. You can still hold that state of care. You don't go chasing the end game. You don't go battling, looking for battles. Is that you hold the integrity of your alignment, and you're softening into it. And it's the care that allows you to soften in, so that you really come into the power of your body, rather than always fighting the strength of it. Does that make sense? So you're working up to figuring that out. So the more you step into that, it's like coming to a point where, okay, I'm going to run the marathon. I'm going to be able to take this state, and I'm going to run with it for the whole time. I'm going to keep going with it now. But we build up to that. Now that's layered into your practice. Okay, now you've got another thing to figure out. A simple example is think about your biggest hip openers, and maybe you want to work on your hips. So you're incrementally working on your hips, but you're incrementally intensifying the practice more and more. So you're gradually opening up your hips until you get your hips fully open. And then you got to get used to holding your hips fully open with your strength and your integrity. And again, that's like you're preparing for the marathon of fully opening up your hips with strength, with power. And then you've got that. And then again, that's another one that you maintain and you nurture as you go along. But every day, you wouldn't be going in and attacking yourself like you're trying to run the marathon every day. The marathon of getting those hips open, really, really punishing them all the time. You wouldn't do it. So your practice is going to have lots of peaks and troughs depending on what you're working on, and as you step more into it. Equally, you're also facilitating where you are. Some days your practice could be more about restorative than the big intensity. Is maybe you just need to come in and center yourself, and then maybe you just need to do just a little bit of limbering. I just need to release out, open my body. Now I just need to sit here and breathe calmly and just let myself just feel energized and relaxed. And then you lie down, you do a nice relaxation, and it could all about just coming into my silence or coming into my sense of connection within myself, because that's what I need that day. That's what moves me forward that day. That's what I'm developing in my practice. So the adaptability in yourself is as you go along, is that you're measuring your own experience, you're recognizing where you are, and then you're giving yourself what you need on any given day. And that's the best way to approach it. Some days you might just want to come in and your mind is busy. You just want to allow your mind to let its thoughts work themselves out. Sometimes that's the best thing to do, is give your mind the space to work its thoughts out. So now you might come in, you might do like a flowing class, where it's a very simple flowing class, where you don't have to think about what you're doing very much, but you can just be in it and just be in the flow of it. And to be honest, in some ways it might look like you're a little bit distracted because you're allowing yourself to process your thoughts. But you're not really. Is that you're putting yourself in that nice simple flow, and you're just letting yourself flow, and at the same time you're just letting your thoughts go. And again, the pennies will drop. You'll see things you didn't see. You'll notice things that you haven't noticed. So that when you come to your relaxation and you lie down, you find that there's less knots in the thoughts. They're not going as fast. Is your mind, your thoughts have figured themselves out a little bit, so that by the time you come to your session, you got a calm mind, or a calmer mind. And that's exactly what you needed on that day. is blasting yourself out of it and pushing whatever's going on out of your mind is not always the answer. Is to actually hold the space open and let yourself figure it out is probably a more effective response, because simply when you work it out, it's worked out. Is you're not having to carry it around with you all the time. So you can see how adaptable and how flexible your self practice can be, and that it's a wonderland of experiences and options that you, as you get more familiar with your practice and more familiar with not yourself, because it's not like you don't know yourself, but that you become more familiar with observing yourself, noticing where you really are, and then being there, and then at the same time holding a nurturing space for yourself where you go, what do I need to do here today? What do I need for myself today? What do I need to give myself in my practice today? How's it going to support me? And that you're using the skills of yoga and the plans, the lesson plans that you're developing to facilitate that. So you might find that you end up having 4 or 5, even 6 different type of practices that you do, and you'll build them up over time. So depending on the mood you're in, depending on your energy levels, depending on what's going on, is you have different practices to facilitate different sides of yourself. So if your energy is high and you need to ground yourself, this is the practice I do. If my energy is low and I need to bring myself up a little bit, this is the practice I do. If my head is all busy and I just need to let it release itself, then this is the practice that I do. Sometimes I just want to come in, I just want to do pure yoga and not think about anything else. Well, then this is the practice that I do. But they all fit into the same formula of there'll be a centering, a limbering, a warming and strengthening, a cooling down, calming down, and a relaxation. It's just the length of each section and the intensity of each section is measured to facilitate and work best for you. So that's really what I want. I wanted to say that I thought about that after the last session. I thought, this is really valuable to say, because this is where the magic happens. The more you get used to your practice, you can come in and just do the same thing every day, and it's a nice way to switch off. I'll just come and do the same thing every day. I'll just switch off and I'll just do that, and it works great. And it can work, and to be honest, it will work for a period of time, but then it'll stop working because its trick is it switches you off. When it stops switching you off, it stops working. So doing the same thing over and over and over, it's commonly known as the one-trick pony. It's only one trick, and as long as it works, it works. But then when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So, and we're far more we're far more complicated than one solution fits all, if that makes sense. So is being engaging and adaptable within ourselves to recognize and figure out and find out what works best for us. So think about that, and as we have the next conversation, is we're going to look at, well, what are the basic categories of postures? Where do they fit in the basic lesson plan? And then as we do that, then we go, well, what ones go where, and why do they go there? Okay, so we have standing postures. So that's fairly straightforward. Standing postures are strong postures. Is think about the peak physicalness of your practice. The standing is the peak physical. So that's where you get the biggest strength practice. Yeah. And the default for standing would be mountain posture. So if you think about your alignment, is that if you really refine your alignment in the mountain posture, all the principles and experience that you recognize in your alignment apply to every other standing posture. What do I mean by that? Is if you have a tendency to tilt your pelvis, so your bum sticks out a little bit like a duck, so you feel like your abdominal wall is spilling out. Yeah, is if you have that unconscious tendency that you do it unconsciously, you'll do that in 100 postures. You do it in them all. You'll do it in all the standing postures. So if you're in mountain posture and you bring your pelvis neutral and you find your pelvic floor and your core engages, you're stacking your alignment. is that same adjustment will apply to all the other standing postures. You might be in different positions, your feet and your legs and different shapes of your body, but it's still the one alignment for your pelvis. It's still the one adjustment. So if you can, the default for standing, if you can understand your alignment in mountain posture, is all those little tips and adjustments that you do in mountain posture, is they'll apply to every other posture. And that's why the default posture is really, really important. Is the default posture is a measurement of every other standing posture that you do. So as a yoga teacher, I could look at somebody in mountain posture and I can follow their pattern of alignment and misalignment. And when I see that, I can then see the play of that in every other posture, because it's the one body, it's the one alignment, it's the one misalignment, and there it is playing out in different postures. So it simplifies the whole thing. So for yourself, for you in your practice, it will be the same thing. So this is one of the things that we're going to start to tease out in your self-practice when we start to get into it, is that you start to understand the categories of postures, why you're doing them, why you would put them there, and then also is that what are the things that you need to look out within your body. Okay, so standing very much the strong postures, and again it works on the legs, works on the hips, but again the whole body's involved, but very much legs and hips. So think about legs and hips when you're doing a lot of standing. If you think about balancing again, it's you can stand, but you can balance on your hands as well. You can balance on your sit bones, but balancing on your legs, again, is very much about, if you think about how important your stability is, that you're stable in your legs, and then that you're stable in your balance. So if you it's good to practice balancing postures, but if you know you're a little unstable on your feet, if you know your misalignment in your body throws your balance off, well then you've an extra reason to do a balancing posture. Other than it's just nice to keep a well-rounded practice, is no, I need to do balancing postures. And balancing postures for me were super important. And I resisted doing them at the start. Very much, I wasn't engaging the four corners of my feet. I wasn't engaging my arches. I stood way too much on my heels. So when I was doing balancing postures, just my lack of awareness in my feet, my ability to stand on one foot, I wasn't there. It was disconcerting. It took me a while to begin to do balancing postures. And as I spread the pad of my foot out and really got my stability, I love balancing postures. But it was a bit of a journey. It was a bit of a journey to get to like them. So again, things to think about when we're going through it. With the standing postures, again, arches of the feet. You know, if your arches collapse in a little bit, is the standing postures are very important to help stabilize and strengthen your arches. It'll take the pressure off your ankle, take the pressure off your knees big time. Again, if you've got a bit of tightness in the hips, the standing postures are great for opening up your hips. So you're thinking about, okay, I'm doing my self practice. What postures do I put in? Where do I put them in? And then also, why am I doing them? Why, other than it feels good, what reasons are you doing them for? And you're getting to know your own body, and you're getting to recognize the things that you need to work on, and then seeing how they fit into your practice. So it makes sense to you. So again, remember, this conversation is a general conversation. It's just to get the juices going with regards you thinking about your own practice and getting a general sense of a map of where does it fit in for you, and where do you fit into that? Yeah. So you have standing, you have balancing, then let's do forward bending. So you've got forward bending postures, yeah. And again, forward bending is excellent again for the hips, great for the hips. Also great for the lower back, hamstrings. How can I say this? When it comes to development, you can see people, they can really develop really fast in their standing. They get really super results in the standing. Yeah. Where the forward bending is sometimes it can be a little bit of a torture rack for people, and the reason being is that if you stand and you fall forward, is if you've got a tight calves, tight hamstrings, tight glutes, tight lower back, is you can be in screaming mode very, very fast, and it can be really difficult to get real progression in it. And part of that is that part of the forward bending is you actually need to really work the front of your body too. So you've got to work the pads of the feet, the thighs, the pelvic floor, the core. You know, there's a lot more to the forward bends than just the agony of a tight back. So working those, being a bit patient in those postures. You can feel the intensity very fast. So micro movements is very important with the forward bends. Is feeling it out, releasing it out, is building your strength. Is again, that's one of those ones that you could fly in the standing postures super fast. But then the forward bends, if you've got tightness in the areas I was talking about, is your progression that is a much slower. It's a much slower, drawn out process. So you can begin to map and measure yourself out through different degrees. So part of one of the things we get into as we go through your alignment is micro movements. And why are micro movements really important? And I said this in another video the other day, is look at the tip of my finger. Look at how big my movement is in my finger, the space I'm moving in. And the wrist is a little smaller, elbow's a little smaller, ball and socket joint, less again, collarbone, less again, going right into my breastbone or my spine, the movements get even less again, so that if I move a small amount in my spine, it can have a very big effect all the way out to my hands. So now think about forward bends, is being able to sit long in the spine and hinge and open up the hip sockets or the ball and socket joint to be able to release the back a small amount. That little bit of release in the back it has a really big effect over time. So with forward bends, it's those little micro progressions that really make the difference. So again, it's how you approach it. Is if you go in and you attack and you push and you pull and you go. It'll make your self practice like a torture rack, and you're better off not going into the torture rack effect in your self practice, because it'll be more difficult for your body to turn up. You know, you don't want to be walking into your room for your self practice, you know, and instinctually your body's going, no, I'm not going in there. You can't make me go in there, because again, you're going to go in and attack it. So you want your body coming in and going, hey, you know, this is about like a massage. You know, it may be like a deep tissue massage, but it's still a massage. You can still feel good. So again, that's part of what we'll be teasing out in the self practice as we go along. Is how do you get into those tight areas? How do you get into those tender or sore areas and actually release them out? And you're getting right into the real skill of working on your body and really developing real openness, real strength and power in yourself. Yeah, and we'll play around the postures to explore that out. Yeah. So that's the forward bends. Now I didn't mention the standing postures at the peak. The balancing postures is, I like to put my balancing postures at the standing ones at the end of my standing practice. I like to do my balancing at the end of my standing practice, because my like the standing on one leg is it's easy if you do it for 15, 20, 30 minutes. But stand on one leg for 3 minutes and it's a different practice. So I like to stand for a long time on one leg, and I love to feel the power of it. I love to be well warmed up and ready for it. I know some people like to put their balancing, and I'm a big guy. I've actually big strong legs, but I'm a big guy, so there's I'm holding that weight, so to speak. Where I know some people like to bring the balancing postures in at the start, and it's more of a awakening the leg and easing into it. I always found that I, you know, when I was setting up my practice, my foot wasn't prepared for that at the start. I can do it now, but I still prefer doing it after the standing. But previously, years back now, is that wasn't, my foot wasn't set up enough to stand on one leg. I felt uncomfortable and I didn't have the right stability and balance in it. So I got used to putting it in at the end. Where some people like to do it as a more relaxing thing at the start, as a more limbering, part of the limbering, warming for standing more. There's neither one is more right or wrong than the other. It's just a personal preference. And again, this is what you can explore. You can try them both and see which one works best for you, or maybe depending on where you are on a given day, one will work better than the other. But we'll be getting into this. You can see the conversations that we'll start teasing out as we go along. Yeah. So the forward bends normally come as a sequence. So you'll have the centering, you'll have the limbering, you have the warming and the strengthening, and then you have the cooling down. So part of the cooling down is the peak postures to standing. The back bends are the second strongest postures you can do. Is physically, the back bends are the second strongest postures that you can do. To prepare for the back bends is you do some forward bending. This is the sequence. You do some forward bending, then you do some twisting to release them out, and then you move into your back bends, so that you've opened up your back a little bit. You've got your core going. You've given it a little bit of a release, and then you're into your back bends. So a good place to put forward bends is after you're standing, when you're coming into that lower peak to prepare, do some twists, and then you come into your back bends, and then your nice strong back bends. So that's a good place to put it. I also at times you can put forward bends in when you're moving to the stronger part of limbering. So you center yourself, you start to limber yourself out, and then you can find yourself doing some forward bends, and after that you're transitioning into something stronger. So it's a nice way to limber out as well. But again, this is what we're getting into is you can put a posture in different parts of the practice. So you can put it in limbering, and you practice it as an opening the body out. But then if you do it in more the strengthening section, you're not just opening the body out, you're using it to build strength. So sometimes I could do a forward bend, and it really is just about opening the hips, releasing at the back, feeling the core a little bit more, lengthening the legs. I'm not going into the intensity of it. But then if I do a forward bend after my standing, it's much more dynamic. I'm much more going into my root and rise. I'm going into the intensity and the strength of it. So depending on where you put it in your lesson plan, your approach to it can vary. And again, that's part of the skill of what section are you in? Are you just limbering out, or are you working up in your power? So again, that's part of the, as we keep going through it, you'll start to see the layering in effect. So forward bends, the twists. Again, the twists. There's the basic sitting twist, but it can be standing twist. There's lots of different types of twists. Essentially, the twists can very much part of a neutralizing part of a transitioning part of your practice. Is that if you've done forward bends, it's nice to do a few twists to help release out any tightness you might feel or resistance that you feel in the trunk of your body. And then twists also, again, work the core a little bit more. So they can be nice transitions after you've done some forward bends, you do some twists, and then it lets you move into back bends. So if you think about twists as a very much a transition from forward bends to back bends, yeah. Now, you can also be in standing postures and then put twists in. And again, that's where you're creating more complexity in postures. But again, we'll get to that as we go along. Is we're just going to look at some basic postures first and how they layer in, and then we look at how you can play around with different combinations and variations to make it work. Okay, so there's the twists. So what have we done now? We've done standing, balancing, forward bends, twists, back bends. So the back bends, again, is the second strongest type of posture you can do. It's one of the ones where safety is more important again. While in all posture, safety is very important. Back bends is where you need to properly take care, in the sense of sometimes we can throw ourselves into standing postures, and okay, the legs will sort of take a bit, take a bit more of that harshness at times, where the back bends you won't get away with that as quickly or as much, because if there's a bit of tightness or tension in the back of the spine, is that you can trigger it much easier. So you got to be a bit mindful with back bends, and also really work your alignment correct. In all the postures, your alignment is very important, but in back bends, it's super important. And again, if you think about back bends, is a lot of the time people will think about the lower back, and they tighten into it because that's the unconscious action. So if you think about it with back bends, is really what you're looking to do is all you want all your back bends to lead with the upper back. So it's the strengthening of the upper back, so that you can begin to use the strength of your upper back to release and elongate your lower spine. And in that, you'll get tone in your lower back, but it's with an elongated spine. So you're not compressing the lower back. And in that, you'll also activate your core. So while you're building true strength in your back, you're also building core strength as well. And again, we'll be teasing all this out. Back bends. I always love back bends. I have a long spine, and again, this is why you'll notice as you go along your body shape and what works best for you. I'm 6 foot. I'm more spine than I am leg. I have a particularly long spine, and I have deep curves in my spine. So especially my lower back, I have a deep curve, just as my natural shape. So back bends were always lovely long spine and deep curve. So I always loved the back bends. Personally, I like the back bends. Where if I do a plow, is if I come onto my shoulders and try and bring my legs over my head, like for an inversion, is I will struggle with that at times, because my long spine and my it's not that I don't have short legs, but compared to my spine, they're short. I'm on my shoulders, my spine is here, and then I'm trying to get my feet to the mat. That's a real challenge for me because of the shape of my body. So that's one of the things we're going to start to talk about as well. Many times, again, you'll have somebody come in, other people come in that have long legs and a shorter spine. Compared to their legs, it's a shorter spine. Some people have really long arms. Some people are just really broad in the hip and shoulder. All different body types. So you got to be really mindful that if you're given a basic guideline, it's only a basic guideline. Within that, you have to find where your lines of force are. When you resist into the ground, there's clear lines of force that come through your hands and arms into your torso, to your spine and your core. Equally with your legs, equally with your spine itself. Is you finding those lines of force, is you finding your alignment. It's you finding where your body's true alignment and strength is. So we'll explore how to do that as we go through the practice as well, because that's part of the self-practice, is recognizing your body, recognizing how it works, and recognizing how it works best for you. So back bends. Again, I've always found with teaching the back bends is when you show the person how to really work their power in it, really find the strength in their back, people fall in love with back bends. Sometimes if people find it a bit of a punishment, as it can be uncomfortable, is they resist the back bends. Once they find their strength in them, back bends are great. They love the back bends. There's great achievement in a lovely, big, strong, powerful back bend. So, and then inversions. Turning yourself upside down, is shoulder stand, head stands, plows, things like that, are super healthy. They are super healthy. And the reason why they're super healthy is, if you think about, and why are they the calming down? They're part of the calming down session. uh, why are they part of the calming down? So you'll start off with centering. You do the limbering. You have low to the ground limbering. You can do a sun salute for a nice fluid and higher energy limbering. Then you're into the standing, forward bending, twisting, back bends, and then inversions. Is why would you do the inversions as the end of the calming down? Well, if you think about when you put your body upside down, it's much easier for your heart to beat the blood up to the soles of your feet and back down again than it is in standing to pump the blood to your feet and back up. So it's actually very, very soothing for the heart. You may not believe it at the start. If you're on your shoulders and it's physically demanding, and maybe your shoulders are tight and it's all uncomfortable, is we can be tight and braced in it, and it's just like this isn't calming, this isn't relaxing. It is, but not for you if it's like that. Yeah. So there's ways that you can adjust and support yourself to find where that calm, relaxing nature of it is. A simple example is in shoulder stand. Do shoulder stand against the wall. So you leave your feet on the wall and you've got all the support that you need so that you can just feel the weight come onto your shoulders, let the shoulders open, let that release happen, resist and feel your resistance, and start to just feel your stability and your strength, and gradually open up your shoulders, gradually open up your body. So that's you working on your inversions, working on your body from upside down, but doing it in a way where, again, think about you're layering it out, you're treading it out more and more and more. You're incrementally breaking it down. And that's one of the most powerful things about actually having a self-practice at home. This is the stuff that you can really spend time teasing out. You don't get the time to do it so much in a class. If there's a bunch of people in the room, the teacher has to take everybody through it. You sort of have to go with, you want to make sure everybody's safe, but you sort of have to always move with the body of ability. But then it's spending the time to really get into those subtleties. There's always a lot going on. So if you've got stuff to figure out in your body, is going home and developing a practice that supports you in the ways that really work for you is brilliant. It really makes the difference. So now let's talk through that again. And I'm going to ask a question. What are all the default postures? What's the starting posture? What's the default posture that you would start with? So for standing postures, it's mountain posture. You're just standing, mountain posture. For balancing postures, it's standing on one leg. So you might just take your 1 foot off the ground and keep the foot active, and again you're just balancing and just getting used to standing on one leg. If that's a challenge for you, you'd have your 2 hands on the wall and you just get used to feeling your weight down through 1 foot and feeling all the engaged muscles stabilize the leg. And again, I did that. I did that for quite a while. I did that for quite a while to have that experience, because I needed to get that baseline before I could start doing any of the other balancing postures. So if you can't just stand on one leg with 1 foot up without falling all over the place, is then again the wall and support, and just you're educating your leg to how to stand in its own balance. And once you have that foundation, then there's the world of other balancing postures that you can play around with. Your self-practice is the time when you can tease that out. So can you stand on your foot for 10 seconds actually in your balance? Can you do it for 20? Can you do it for 30? Can you do it for a minute? Does that make sense? And if you can do it for 20 seconds or 30 seconds, within that, what else can you do? Now you're starting to play around with all the, well, I could do this, you could do that. You're playing around with all the variations within that. Okay? So again, you'll see we've a lot to go through as we tease this out over time. But you can see the way I'm trying to seed the conversations with you, there's lots of fun and engagement that we can go on. Yeah. So you've got the standing posture is mountain, just standing, default. Balancing on one leg for balancing, standing 1 foot. Then we have forward bends. Forward bends is stick pose. Stick pose, it's where you're sitting straight on the ground on your sit bones and your legs are straight out. And again, spread out the toes and hands down with the side of the body. And that's stick pose. That's your default for all your your forward bending when you're sitting down. And the reason being is again, I remember when I first started my practice, I actually couldn't do that. I couldn't actually feel my sit bones. The oddest thing, it's so second nature to me now. But I remember the time where I was trying to find my sit bones and I didn't know how to press my sit bones into the ground. And I sort of had to shift my body into a position that the weight is just pressing it, rather than me actively pressing down myself. It was a fascinating journey to figure out how to press my sit bones, actively press them into the ground, and then from that is allow the openness in my hip socket to allow my leg to be straight. I was all rounded over and legs all tight and bunched up. So that process is coming into my center and then coming into my alignment and my yield. There's a process that I have to go through to figure that out. So we'll be teasing all that out. And again, this is real self-practice. This is what the practice is really about, is figuring out how to do all this and get right into your body. Yeah. So if you've got the stick pose, again, it sets you up for the forward bends. Equally, if you're going to stand and do forward bends, it's really the same principles. It's just you're standing on your feet. Also, for the twisting, is stick pose. Because you sit, you forward bend, then you sit and you twist. So stick pose is your ability to sit straight in your spine with your legs out straight. Now think about this: mountain posture for standing. Now put your legs straight out and sit down. It's stick pose, so it's really mountain posture, but sitting down is then balancing on one leg or one foot. Again, it's mountain posture on one foot. Okay, so now from there we have back bends. The default for back bends is bridge. And bridge pose is you're lying on your back, you bend your knees, you put your feet flat on the floor, a few inches apart. Hands down by the side of your body, palms up or palms down, and then you press with your feet, you lift your hips up. Now, why is bridge the default for the back bends? And the reason being is because you have the most control. Is that when you press with your feet and you lift your hips, is your legs are doing a lot of the work at the start, and you have a lot of control in the arch of your back. And you can manage that much better. So you can really begin to work on the subtleties of your back bends and the strength of it, because you've got your legs in control and your feet are planted. Where a lot of the other back bends, you're lying on your belly and then you're arching. So there's not the same stability, and then you can easily be locking your arms and locking into your lower back and things like that, where it's harder to do that in bridge, because your hips can only go so high before they won't go any higher. So it's harder to compress and lock yourself into your lower back in bridge. So it's safer, essentially, and it gives you more stability. You can stay in it longer and really explore it out. So bridge is the default. So all the things you need to learn in all the back bends is you learn it in the default. Because whatever issues you're going to have in bridge, you're going to have them in all the other back bends. It's going to be the same thing, believe it or not. I'll give you an example. Is if you have a tendency to turn your feet out a little bit like 10 to 2 and then lean to the outside of your heels when you stand. If you have that tendency to unconsciously stand like that, you'll have that same tendency when you stand in mountain posture and then every other posture. You'll have that same tendency when you stand on one foot. One foot will be like 10 to 2 and you keep feeling like you're falling over. Is you in stick pose, you'll let your feet roll out to the side, and again it's gonna disengage the legs. So you'll have that tendency. In bridge, when you plant your feet, you'll do 10 to 2. When you push to lift your hips up, you'll push to the outside of your heel and you'll tighten your calf and hamstring rather than work the pads and the thighs of your feet. You'll have that tendency in all those postures. So when you start to look at your defaults and start to refine your default postures, whatever you figured out in the default, layers into every other posture, it'll be the same adjustment. And that's how you really accelerate in your practice. You're not looking at 100 postures going, God, I have to try and figure out those 100 postures. You've got one body, figure out how your body works, what's its alignment, what's its misalignment, know the adjustments, the pathways, open up the pathways between your misalignment and your alignment, and then use that to challenge yourself in the postures. Can I hold my form in this posture? Can I hold my form in that posture? Can I do it in that posture? Well, if I complicate, if I do a standing and then put a twist in, or can I still hold my form, or do I prop my chest? Because maybe you have a tendency to prop your chest. So if you overcomplicate it and you prop your chest, okay, I got to bring my breastbone down and activate my upper abdominals. That might be one of the things that is one of your unconscious habits that you need to adjust. But it'll apply across the board. And then it's the fun of holding that point of focus and layering it into 10 postures, 20 postures, 30 postures, 40 postures. Can you hold them for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute? Imagine you can do 10 postures for a minute, holding your true alignment. I'll say that again. Imagine, if I can remember, imagine being able to hold 10 postures for 1 minute, holding your true alignment. Do you know how brilliant that would be? How such a milestone. That's an enormous milestone to get to. 10 postures for 1 minute, completely in my alignment. For you to get to that, you would really know your body. And that doesn't have to be that far away if you practice smart and then you practice intelligently. So we tease that out. So default for inversions is shoulder stand. Basically, shoulder stand. I was going to say half head stand. Shoulder stand. It's shoulder stand. So shoulder stand is again, it can be challenging if you're not used to turning yourself upside down. Generally, it's not as scary as headstand, but for some people, shoulder stand is scary. You gotta roll into it. You gotta get spinal rolls, get used to rolling up onto your shoulders. And that can be scary for some people. You know, they might haven't done that since they were kids. You know, or they might have a tight back or tight shoulders, and it just doesn't feel comfortable. So maybe it's shoulder stand against the wall. And as you do shoulder stand against the wall, your feet give you the stability and the strength that you can begin to come up onto your shoulders and get used to feeling the weight of your body come down onto your shoulders, and then just let that weight just open up all across the shoulders and the neck. Is gorgeous. Think about if you have tight neck and shoulders, is just allowing your own body weight to just release them out, and you're breathing into it. So you may have to work on that to get your shoulders and your body grounded in an inversion before you can really begin to go into the full shoulder stand. You may need to just release that out a little bit. And it's a super posture, set of postures for releasing out your neck and your shoulders. But again, you got to do it in a way that it's not a torture rack, that you're not going into it and you're bracing and it's fighting against your own tightness and you're killing yourself in it. It's not a good way to approach it. You don't need to do it that way. And that's one of the things we're going to go through, is how do you crack all those default postures and start to look at your body, recognize your alignment, and look at the things you need to work at. So the inversions is a lot about shoulders, neck, arm strength, upper body strength. So think about inversions are great for that. Let's do this backwards. Back bends. Back bends is super for, again, upper body strength, and also building strength in your back. Building that real strength in your back, releasing out your lower back, and also back bends are super for core and pelvic floor. You do them with real alignment, real core strength. I love my core in back bends. Is the twists. Again, twists are great for the core, super for the spine, and just a lovely releaser. Just a lovely, it's like squeezing the cloth. It's a lovely releaser. You can squeeze things out. Then the forward bends. Forward bends again is if I start with because the forward bends are one of those postures where it works so much with the tension spots of the body. is that's why it's so good for you, and it's also why people hate it so much, is if you've got tight calves, it's great to help lengthen those muscles out. Same the hamstrings, same the glutes, same the lower back, all the way up to the neck and shoulders. It's great for building strength in the thighs, your pelvic floor, your psoas, your deep core muscle, the whole trunk of the body. It's great for building strength there. Even with a really strong forward bend, it's super strong for the upper back. It's great. It's just such an all-rounder. It's one of the reasons, and we'll get into this, it's one of the reasons why downward dog is such an important posture. If you're not familiar with downward dog, we'll be getting into it. But downward dog is such a dynamic posture because of the way it works the body and how much of the body it releases. It really does release a lot of the common tight areas in the body. And downward dog it's actually not such an easy posture to do. And to do it right, to do it with alignment, downward dog can be a real challenge. People have a tendency to chase the heels to the floor, chasing the end game. Once I get my heels down, everything else is great, which is not really true. Is really getting into your ground, your yield, your lines of force, your core, your strength, your mobility, your flexibility. It can be one of those practices where, again, you tread it over a long time, but you could nearly, and I'm sure some people might want to argue with this with me, but I think there are a few postures that really you can really measure the vitality of your body from a physical point of view by your ability to do certain postures. Downward dog is probably one of those postures where to do it well, so much of your body has to be in its alignment and working together, so that you're working it in unity. A real powerful downward dog is beautiful. It's just beautiful to see somebody in it because they're so vital in it, if that makes sense. And again, we'll be teasing that out as well. Yeah. So now let me ask you. Let's do a body scan. As I do a body scan with you, I want you to just check in with the different parts of your body and what do you think needs to be done with them, just from your own awareness of your body. And what I mean by that is we'll go through the body and where are your tightest areas in your body? Where are your tightest joints in your body? What muscles, areas of your body where the muscles are weaker? They're just demonstrably weaker. You can recognize they're weaker. Even a weak joint, where you're not very stable in the joint. Some joints are all tight and locked up, but other joints are not very stable. You know, when I stand on that leg, that my knee joint isn't very stable. I don't feel comfortable, and it feels like it could go. So there can be an instability in it. Yeah. So let's just do it. Let's just see. So we're going to start from the ground up, and we're just going to stand in mountain posture. So if I was to ask you about your feet, so how are your feet? Everything to the ankle, but not the ankle. So how are the soles of your feet? You know, are you grounded in them? Are you stable in them? Are your arches collapsing a little bit or not? You know, how are your arches? How's the spread of the weight in your foot? If I was to ask you about the four corners, the inside of your heel, the outside of your heel, the big toe and the little toe, is if I was to ask you how you normally distribute your weight, is where do you normally put it in your foot? Would you have a tendency to put it on the heels, or do you spread out a little bit more to the pads and the toes as well? Just as a way of recognizing how you hold your weight in your body and how you activate your feet. And that'll actually tell you a lot. Again, we'll talk through this, and we're going to do sessions on this. Just this alone, we're going to do a session on. And what I mean by that, if you have a tendency to stand to the outside of your heels, you're putting weight in your body up through the back of your body. So you're going to have tight calf, tight hamstring, tight glute. Your leg that you primarily stand on, one of your glutes is going to be tighter than the other. One side of your back might be a little bit tighter than the other because you're leaning your weight up that side of your body. So how you plant your weight in your feet will tell you an awful lot about where you're going to find tightness in your body and where you're going to find weakness. So if you have a tendency to stand predominantly on your right leg, you guarantee that you're going to have more tightness in the right side of your body, and you're going to have more compression in your joints. On the left side is going to be weaker, and the joints are going to be more less stable. They won't be tight, but they won't be stable either, as a general rule. Yeah. So your feet, is there anything that you feel that you need to work on, or that would help you in your feet? And again, what are the postures that would do that? The standing postures, the balancing postures, they would be great for that. Your ankles, do you have stability in your ankles? We'll do a joint release where we'll go through all the joints and you'll get to test it. But just generally for now, how are your ankles? And if you're to measure one ankle off another, which one is more stable, or which one do you use more, or which one you get a bit of ache and pain in? What's the general story of it? So do you need to stabilize that ankle? Do you need to put a little bit more weight on that ankle? Do you need to balance the feet more so the ankles are more stable? Because your feet planted stabilize the ankle. If your arches are collapsing, it's going to destabilize your ankle. So just noticing those things, because they're the things that you work on in your body to set up your alignment. Okay, so your calves and your shins, how are they? How are your calves and your shins? Have you got tight ones? A lot of people have tight calves. They recognize they have tight calves. Yeah. Other people, you could be grand. Just notice. Yeah, those muscles might need to actively lengthen a little bit more. So now think about this: this muscle is shortening while this muscle is lengthening. Now this muscle is shortening while this muscle is lengthening. So in the calves, they also shorten and lengthen. So if the calves get tight, what happens is that they're shortening too much, and they can sort of forget how to actively lengthen. So if the muscle is tight, what you need to do there is you start to need to work on actively lengthening the calf. Now, if you're in your muscle, you'll think about it and feel it one way. If you're trying to work your muscle by being outside it, you'll think about it another way. So what I mean by that, think about you in the muscle. You'll feel your muscle actively lengthening and actively shortening. If you're not in the muscle in your awareness and you're just trying to work it from the outside, you'll think your muscle tenses, and then you're going to think your muscle stretches. So I squeeze it and then I stretch it. So when we go to work on the calf, is a lot of times people try to force the heel down to stretch the muscle out. And when you're trying to stretch the muscle out, you're not working it from the inside, you're pulling it from the outside. And your muscle doesn't stretch, it actively lets go, it elongates. So when you're in the muscle, it actively elongates. When you're outside trying to stretch it, then a lot of times your body, that won't feel right to your body, so your body will fight. So your body will actually tighten up to protect itself, and then you're attacking it, and your body feels like it's getting beaten up. So figuring out how to engage the muscles and work with them that will accelerate everything. You can move very fast in your practice once you learn how to be in your body and work with it, as opposed to working it from the outside. So body scanning, just to notice. So if your calves are tight, we've got to figure out how to actively be in them and actively lengthen them, and to tease that out and nudge it out with them. You're trying to re-educate the muscle consciously how to actively let go, to let itself lengthen. And once you do that consciously, you'd be surprised how quickly your body will work with it, because the muscles like to engage and release. The spontaneous muscle is spontaneously toning and releasing. Is it actively tones, it actively releases. That's how the body loves to feel. That's the most natural state of the body. So when you're encouraging it to move back to that state, once it starts to get the message, things can move very fast. Where you could be bashing yourself for years, attacking your muscles from the outside, and they'll never get the message because you're not delivering the right message to them. You're not communicating the right way. You're not engaging in a way that's actually you coming into your body, as opposed to you trying to force your body to do something. So again, you can see the conversations that we're going to have and getting into that whole process. Okay, so your knees. How are your knees? Okay, so again, knees might be fine. Other people is you can get the weakening of the side of the knees. If there's instability in the feet, is it can put a lot of pressure on the ankle joint. So the knee joint is a hinge joint. It's a stabilizer. So if you've got a stable foot and you've got a stable knee, you have a good ankle. But if you've an unstable foot, you'll have an unstable ankle. It'll put pressure. The knee is going to have to brace to try and stabilize if the foot's not doing it. So that's where you get those stresses and strains on the side of the knee. So if you've got those, most likely it's about stabilizing your foot. So think about that. If you stabilize your foot, stabilize the ankle, and then you can really work the power of the hinge joint of your knee. So again, standing postures for that, balancing postures for that. But again, if it is strain on the knee joint, it's not about big, powerful postures and powering through. It's about awareness. It's about finding your stability, your awareness, get your ground, get the stability of the foot engaging in a stable way so you feel the ankle stable, and then you can start to feel what it feels like to have your knee joint stable. So rather than the knee bracing to protect the foot, the knee doesn't have to brace because the foot is grounding itself. And now you're realigning the action and the movement of the knee joint. And again, that's awareness first, rather than just powering through all the time. Powering through all the time is not a goat. It's like a one-trick pony. It is not an answer all the time. It will work sometimes, most times it won't. It takes the understanding of the body and coming into it and getting that alignment. So maybe that's one of the things that you need to develop in your self-practice. So when you're doing the postures, that would be elementally important for you to tease that out. Again, thighs is shockingly, when I started doing yoga years back, maybe 25 years ago, is again, I was walking so much on my heels that I had very little strength in my thighs. So I remember I was doing standing postures, I was just trying to activate my thighs. I actually couldn't activate. I couldn't consciously tense my thighs at all. It was shocking when I realized I couldn't do it. I was like, oh my God, it's terrible, you know. I figured out how to do it, thank God. So maybe that's one of the things you need to do. Maybe you just need to figure out how to actually tense your thigh with any form of control. You may have a tense thigh. You may have to learn how to actively release it. But for me, I need to actively tone it. Is bring awareness to it and feel the tone and get into feeling the tone in a way that I can relax and hold that tone. Excuse me. Relax and hold that tone. So again, that's something you may need to work on. Inner thighs, again, how your inner thighs. A lot of times you might need to strengthen and tone your inner thighs. A lot of times you have tight hips. It's because the rotator cuffs on the outside is the hip flexors. They not the rotator cuffs, the hip flexors. They can get very tight. So we're bracing in the hips, if that makes sense. And it's to release those out. But the inner thighs are going to have to work a little bit more. So when we're doing hip openers, is going to a point where you can feel the inner thigh working with that strength, and just settling into it and building awareness there before you go for too much intensity. And again, the hip flexors is you may need to work on opening up the hips. So you may be surprised that doing low to the ground positions where you can open your hips and use a little bit of your body weight may be a good place for you to start with opening your hips before you try to use the whole strength of your leg. That you can break down your practice to work on specific parts of your body first, rather than trying to do the whole posture. Is you just focus on the body part and you work on what you need in that body part. Does that make sense? And then when you get the hips more open, then you start layering that into other practices, other postures, and bringing the strength of your legs into it. Again, we'll be teasing this out as we go along. First thing we're going to do is start build a sequence of postures that gives you an all round practice. So you want a baseline practice that you're doing as a baseline. This is what I do, and then we start to refine it a bit more. So we start to refine your alignment in your body and how to bring your body more and more into that practice. And then we start to look at more specifically, is there something you need to work on? Okay, let's go in and open that up a little bit more. So you're refining your practice as you go along. So this is just an idea, just a brainstorming with you. Is then we'll start to look at, well, here's a lesson plan. Let's start following this lesson plan. Let's talk through this lesson plan. And then as we do, we'll refine it. And as we go through it, some of those refinements will be really relevant to you. Pelvic floor. How's your pelvic floor? How is your ability to draw it up? If you need to stop yourself going to the toilet, how's that for you? Have you got the tone? Have you got the control? Is or not? So again, how do you engage your pelvic floor? How do you get that perineum engagement? So again, that's one of the things you may need to work on. You may not. It might be all good. Is then the glutes. How's your glutes? The glutes is one of those areas, believe it or not, where a lot of people hold tension, but it's not. Like you ask people, hey, where's your tension spots? They say, oh, my neck, my shoulders, my lower back, calves, hamstrings. Everybody slips past the glutes. And a lot of times people don't realize that the glutes can actually hold quite a lot of tension. So it may be that we need to begin to actively release out the glutes, things like pigeon, and just starting to lengthen and release out the muscles and take a bit of the tightness out of them. It's that tightness of the muscle is shortening, and then it's got really locked into it. So as you start to ease the muscle out, is you're showing the muscle the other direction is to lengthen out. And once the muscle starts to lengthen out, it will lengthen itself out. So you're just getting it to move in its full range of motion, where it has the ability to tone and then release. So it's all about the shortening. Is when you show it how to lengthen, is when it's in its center of gravity, it's naturally toning and releasing as you go along. And that's what you're looking for with all of your body, is that all of your body is able to be in its natural integrity, where it can tone and release spontaneously. And that's one of the things you're looking to experience in your self-practice, to get to that place in your body where you're just in the spontaneity of your own natural integrity. Okay, it's super. It's super. It might take a year or two, but believe it or not, we'll go through all those steps. Is the trunk of your body? How's your trunk? Okay, just as a general area. So you've got your lower abdominals, your upper abdominals, you've got your obliques at the side, you've got your lower back. They're all your simply your trunk muscles. Deep in, you've got your psoas, your deep core muscles. How are they generally? How would you describe them? Like a lot of people have a lot of shortness of the muscles in the lower back, so the tightness is there. The passive elongation of the navel is that the muscles are weaker. And then some people, again, you might not even, if I ask you about your obliques, you might just go, what obliques? I can't feel them, I can't notice them. And that'll give you a good idea about your awareness in the trunk of your body, the tone and strength of it. And again, the balance is while you want to actively release the muscles in your lower back to get them to lengthen a little bit, the balance of that is the muscles at the front have to tone and shorten a little bit, that they get a bit more stability into them, and that you bring your obliques in. So all of your trunk is, as you breathe, inhaling and exhaling, you want all of your trunk working in its tone, its ability to tone and release. So again, that might be something that you need to work on. And again, that's everything from standing postures, forward bends, twists, back bends. There's not one posture that you would do that wouldn't be part of an elemental part of the practice. Your core and your spine is really one of the things, as you understand more and more, is elementally important in every posture. Is you get your spine working to its full elongation, its full length. You're yielding in it. Is everything else in your body is supporting that spine. Everything, every posture, Every part of your body is here to support your spine, so that your brain and your central nervous system is protected and held in a vital state. If your spine starts to compress, your central nervous system starts to compress, the quality of your overall health is beginning to be reduced. Less blood, less circulation, less energetic currents, less electrical currents, is everything starts to feel the effect of the compression of the spine. So the more we can keep the joints of the spine open and released and the body strong around that, that's where you're going to find your vitality. So that's really one of the purposes of if not the main purpose of doing all the postures. But ultimately, again, we can go, oh, I like this posture, oh, look, I'm great in that posture. But when you're 70 years of age, it'll be about your stability. How stable are you in your body? Do you still have your mobility? When you're 80 years of age, can you still get around? Can you bend down? Can you pick something up? Do you still have your flexibility? Can you still breathe a vital body? Is your mind still clear and open? Or are we all starting to collapse in on ourselves, and the quality of everything gets reduced to that? So the longer the spine, the longer the health. That's the simple truth of it. So all the practice is working towards that. Yeah. So your trunk, again, as you can hear me on the trunk, this is why the trunk's super important. Yeah. Again, your rib cage. How's your intercostal muscles? How's your chest? How's your upper back? I know it might be an odd question to ask. What are you talking about? How's the intercostals? How's the chest? How's the upper back? What does that mean? How's your shoulders? How's your shoulder blades? You know, it might seem odd to ask it. Let me ask you a question. When you breathe, is how much do you move your rib cage? Is when you're inhaling, is how much does your rib cage and upper chest expand? How much does it contract? Again, I remember when I first started, there wasn't a huge amount of movement. I've got a deep curve in my spine, so I was a lot of propping. So when you prop your chest, it makes it very difficult to breathe the expansion of your rib cage. You bring your breastbone down, and all of a sudden your intercostals have a lot more freedom. It tones your upper back more. It gives you that elongation. There's a lovely release of energy, because my shoulders, once they can rest, my collarbone and my shoulder blade, once they can rest on my rib cage and spine, I release the tension across my neck and shoulders. Is if I don't have an expanded rib cage and a toned back, is my neck and shoulders bunch up, trying to keep me up. So a strong upper back, a mobile rib cage with the ability to breathe is really important. Is the ability to breathe the three phases of your lungs, so your abdominals for your lower lungs, your rib cage and your upper chest. Those three areas of your breath are vitally important for the health and well-being of your body, and also your strength, your mobility, your flexibility. They're all equally important. So this here, what's going on here, will have a big effect on the amount of tension you hold in your neck and shoulders, believe it or not. So the more you engage in that, well, you start to find the neck and tension just starts to go away, just falls away. It releases, you let it go. How are your hands? If I asked you to hold your hands like that for 5 minutes, could you do it? Just from a point of view of awareness, can you keep them like that for 5 minutes, so that it's your awareness is able to hold it there just for 5 minutes? Then the strength, I know it doesn't look like much, but that toning of the fingers and the hand, there's actually quite a bit of strength and tone in that. How is it when it takes weight? Do you have a tendency to lean into the butt of the hand and puts a lot of compression on the wrist? And then the solution is to put more weight through the pad of the hand, the knuckles of the fingers, and toe them all the way to the length, so the whole hand is down. It makes all the muscles in the arms work. So while it takes the pressure off the wrist, it also stabilizes the wrist. Now you've got the power of the hinge joint in the arm, and that the ball and socket joint is mobile, and collarbone and shoulder blade are connected. So you've got your line of force from your hand all the way through into your rib cage, into your spine and your core, and that you've got that line of force on the strength of it. Another example, the counter of that is, and remember my own practice, or before my own practice, is when I used to carry a bag, I'd pick it up and my shoulder would roll. So I was picking my bag up by tightening my neck and shoulders. I actually wasn't picking it up through my line of force, through my core. So I remember my arms were weak, and I also remember that anytime I carried a bag, I couldn't carry it for very long without getting tired. As opposed to when I lock in my line of force and I'm moving through my core, is if I'm carrying a bag, I can feel the weight of it in my feet, so that I'm grounded and I'm centered. So this weight is levered through my core rather than hanging over like this. Just as an example. So again, is there things you need to do? Do you need to build strength in your arms? As an example. And if you think about a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So you've got a chain with 10 links, and one of the links is half the size of the rest. The chain is only as strong as the weakest link, the smallest link. So if you've got weak hands or weak feet, how strong do you think your legs are? How strong do you think your hands are or your arms are? So having strong feet and strong hands is really, really important, because if they're weak, destabilizes the rest. And again, we get into teasing this out, and you recognizing the things you really need to work on. And you'll see we'll start working from the outside in. So when you work on your hands, you're going to follow your strength through into your core. You work on your foot, you follow your strength through all the way to your core. Again, you releasing the neck and shoulders. How are your neck and shoulders? Maybe you need to release them. Maybe you have a tendency to bring your chin like this. This tightens the neck. So maybe you need to lengthen the back of the neck, so up to the base of the skull, and that lengthens the neck, lengthens the spine, and it creates a nice tone in the throat. And believe it or not, that tone in the throat clears your nasal passage, so it actually can clear your sinuses. It can just give you a nice clear face. And I know that from experience, as I remember I used to do this. I used to be all bunged up all the time, and my sinuses were collapsing a little bit because I wasn't holding the tone. Literally wasn't holding the tone in my face. So the more I elongated and got that natural tone, it activated my throat, it opened up my airways, and literally I started to tone my nasal passage, where my airways move more freely. And I remember just infections happen less. I got a clearer face, got clearer eyes. It just cleared up a lot of things. Fascinating. So you can see the conversation again at the top of your head. What do you mean by that, Roy? I remember when I first started doing headstands, putting weight on my head, it hurt like hell. It really hurt. I just wasn't used to doing it. Just the pressure. So having the pressure on the head is actually very soothing. Doing a headstand now is a bit like a massage. It's really, really nice. But at the start, it was odd. It's odd. Okay, so I'm waffling a bit now. I'm talking, and I know I'm saying a lot of really good things, thought-provoking, things to think about. The postures, your body, how it all fits together. So if I can get you to go off and think about it a bit more, if you can just bookmark in your own mind the parts of your body that you recognize that you need to do a bit of work on, and just think about it very simply as a muscle or a joint. So in the muscle, do you need to tone it and build more strength in it, or do you need to actively release it? Do you need to take a bit of tightness out of it? So what areas of your body do you need to tone a bit, and what areas do you need to actively release a bit? And do the body scan again if you need to, and just check in with yourself. Then with your joints, is there any joints that you have that they're compressed, that they don't have their mobility? And a simple example is the ball and socket joint here. If I push the ball up into the socket, it reduces my mobility. I get very stiff. It doesn't go very far. Yeah. If I draw the ball out of the socket, now I come back into the full range of my mobility. So again, is there joints in your body where you can really notice the restriction of your mobility? It doesn't move very much. Yeah. And then the other thing, are there joints in your body where you feel unstable or weak? An example is if you've got a very dominant leg. So if you stand a lot on your right leg, is when you put your weight on your left, it doesn't feel very stable in your ankle or your knee or your lower back. Maybe your lower back, the spine doesn't feel very stable. So just start to notice those areas, because when you recognize those areas, they're the areas we'll work on, and we'll use the postures to start developing your body awareness and your refinement, so that it'll make a lot of sense to you. I know where this posture fits in the practice. It's sequentially fluid. And then I also know why I'm doing it. So on the next session, we'll start to look at this sequencing of postures. And what I mean by that is, here's mountain posture, is my feet are together. Okay, well, the next thing to do is step my feet out a little wider, and then a little wider. So I'm going from triangle to warrior 2 to extreme sideways stretch, or wide-legged standing forward bend, is I'm incrementally taking my feet out. I'm incrementally stepping my feet back. I'm incrementally going deeper into back bends. So you'll see that there's the practical way that you would layer your postures and prepare is one posture is always setting you up for the next, as opposed to I'm here and then jump your feet all the way out as wide as you can. You're just asking for an injury. And think about what we just did with the body scan. Imagine throwing yourself with your feet out as far as you can without any preparation. What's going to go? What's going to feel that? Your glutes, your inner thighs, your ankles, your back. You just won't be prepared for it. So that preparation sets it all up, and you can begin to measure how you're getting on that. You can begin to measure your limits, and you go, oh, look, my back can only take this, or my ankle can only take that. And that you're incrementally developing your practice, really working with the limits of your edge, and also staying in control and incrementally teasing those edges out. So you're thinking smart, and that you're really intelligently engaging in your body and your practice. Yeah. So it'll be super duper. It'll be a great conversation to have, and then we just keep rolling. We'll see where it takes us. But for now, thank you very much. Thanks for listening there. I was waffling on, getting my own little buzz there. Well, I will see you next time, and thank you.